Welcome to today's episode. The building materials sector is a cornerstone in India's infrastructure and housing growth story. From cement and pipes to tiles and wood panels, the demand dynamics are evolving rapidly. Joining us today is Mr. Hrishikesh Bhagat, Vice President Equity Research at Kotak Mahindra Asset Management Company Limited, to share his insights on the key demand drivers, competitive landscapes, formalization trends, and the impact of consolidation. If you are curious about how's the sector shaping up in next 3 to 5 years, you are at the right place. So let's get started. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bhagat.
Thank you.
So let's begin by understanding what are the main demand drivers for cement, pipes, tiles, and wood panels in the next 3 to 5 years.
So, if you look at it, housing is a critical driver for the demand for the overall all the product categories that you spoke about. So, for something like cement, it accounts for somewhere around 69%. Now, when we look at this data from the top seven cities, clearly real estate has been supportive of growth. Overall, if we look at it, the share of premium houses has gone up from which is almost close to 3 crore and above house ticket size houses has gone up to close to 25% from 8%. So broadly, I think housing is a major driver for most of these building material categories. Obviously, at what time it comes depends. So cement and pipes will come in the early stage of construction, whereas something like other building material categories, probably tiles or plywood, will come in late stage of construction cycle. So the demand varies on terms of at the time of construction cycle, but this is how housing is a critical driver.
So, how is the competitive landscape across various building material product categories?
So when we look at the competitive landscape, if we look at something like cement, it is relatively well consolidated in terms of larger companies accounting for significant share. Clearly, pipes is reasonably well organized in terms of the organized share is close to 69%. Clearly, the where the scope of increase is clearly in terms of tiles and to some extent a reasonable extent plywood, where we believe that share of organized needs to go up, and that's where probably the growth runways could be better effectively.
Mr. Bhagat, also tell us how does India's per capita cement consumption compare globally, and what does this mean for growth?
So if you look specifically from the per capita side, I think apart from cement, most of the product categories we are significantly under penetrated. So cement we account for somewhere around 250 to 60 per kgs, significantly lower than the global average of 500 plus. Even in case of something like PVC consumption, we are close to 3 kgs lower than developed countries, which are close to 8 per kgs. So broadly, what this implies is that we have significantly long runway for growth. And even coming to the penetration, if you look at our mortgage to GDP penetration is close to 25% lower. So effectively, that implies that housing itself has a significant long runway, and that implies good runway for even the building material product categories that we spoke about.
Okay, and also tell us which sub segments like tiles, plywoods, laminates are formalizing fastest.
So when we look at the fastest formalization, it has happened in case of pipes. If you look at larger companies, share almost market share is close to 70% organized companies. Cement is already well organized in terms of that larger companies have a significant capacity share. Where we have seen faster formalization happening is case of is probably plywood sector, where we believe that clearly the regulatory headwinds has led to challenges for smaller companies, and clearly the larger companies have benefited in terms of market share.
So, I'd also like to understand what has been the impact of consolidation for this building material sector.
So consolidation has been an important theme across these product categories. So cement, we have seen large companies becoming larger. Their capacity share has improved, and clearly, what has it led to is the market share benefit for larger companies and higher share of the profit pools. Now, when we look at the benefit of this, is clearly it has led to the improvement in pricing power. So across the cycle, the profitability for cement company or larger cement companies have gone up compared to what it was in early part of decade and today when we talk about. Similarly, market share has been improved for a lot of larger plywood companies or tiles companies even for the laminate companies that we have seen because of the movement from unorganized to organized.
And let's also talk about the biggest risk of this sector right now.
So, if we, as highlighted at the start of this podcast, that housing is a bedrock of demand, and you need this housing cycle to be steady for the demand to be steady for, or probably the end demand to remain good for these product categories. And as long as housing cycle is supportive, we believe that the demand for these product categories will remain reasonably supportive. Now, beyond this, if you look at it clearly, the risk is different across various product categories. So, something like cement, we believe that potential competitive intensity and probably pricing could be a major risk for the sector. Second is coming to say something like tiles, or to some extent other product categories like laminates. We have seen India has become larger pie in the exports, but any slowdown in exports will effectively translate into lower domestic capacity utilization and higher competitive intensity in domestic market. So this is one major risk that we feel is for the building material sector and across product categories.
So, any advice for our investors to remain calm and invest wisely in this sector?
Our philosophy has been play with the market leaders who have been able to gain market share. I think that theme will continue for a long term, or probably over the long run. And this is where we feel that probably investors could make a lot of money.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhagat, for joining us and sharing your valuable perspective on the demand drivers, risk, and emerging opportunities.
Thank you.
So that wraps up our deep dive conversation into India's building materials sector and the factors influencing its growth trajectory. We hope this discussion helps our investors to understand and invest wisely in this sector and remain calm throughout. For more such discussions, stay tuned to Kotak Mutual Fund.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.